Hi everyone, it's Joe here from Lawn Solutions Australia and welcome to this episode of Turf Talk, where today we're all about autumn. Autumn's hit, the year is absolutely flying by. Joined by Nathan Edwards again. Nathan, how you going?
Good, Joe. Thanks for having me, mate.
So, autumn podcast. Now, what's on the agenda today? What are we going to be talking about today?
Autumn's a great time of year. There's a lot going on, a lot to talk about in regards to the weather, certain things you want to be looking at doing to your lawn as well. And we're seeing a lot of inquiries about certain issues in particular. So we thought we'd cover off all these key things to make sure it's a helpful edition of the podcast, not just for the commercial industry, the domestic industry, everyone's experiencing the same thing. So a lot to go through. For
those that don't know, the Lawn Solutions Facebook page, the Lawn Solutions email, phone number, we get, sometimes hundreds of inquiries a day or over a weekend about people's lawns, their issues that are going on. So we like to package them together, find solutions for the customers, obviously there and then, but turn that into podcasts, blog articles and that sort of stuff so we can make sure everything we're talking about is super, super relevant. And probably the main one we're getting at the moment is a lot of disease-related issues coming in autumn.
Yeah, a fair bit of disease. We don't commonly see a lot of disease, but I think we've had a particularly hot sort of summer period, lots of humidity, particularly in the more northern states. So we are getting a lot of inquiries basically, what's going on with my lawn here? What's these spots? What's this texture going on here? Why is there deterioration? All those sorts of things. Some people very quick to identify that they've got a disease, that they're looking at fungicides and they want to know what products to use, which can sometimes take you down the path of, neglecting to address the actual cause in the first place.
Yeah, and spending a lot of money too in the meantime. I always say to people, I think fungicides, obviously if you're on a golf course, it's different. I'm going to talk residential lawns now. Fungicides are probably the last place you should look a lot of the times. I think you've got to look at the cultural issues that are going on and try and address those first before applying a fungicide. I think fungicides should be almost a last resort.
Absolutely.
Like a lot of the stuff we're seeing now, I think you'd agree, is leaf spot in buffalo lawns, black spot we call it sometimes, or just, grey leaf spot or something like that.
Yeah, particularly in buffalo because it's easy to identify in that broader leaf. So we're seeing a fair bit of it. And at the end of the day, it's because of the conditions being experienced. So there's not a lot you can do in regards to that initially, but there are things you can do to limit. If you're getting a lot of rain, then obviously you need to reduce your irrigation so you're not exacerbating that issue. If you've got a lot of humidity, you're obviously dropping your irrigation as well, making sure your irrigation practices are on point and you're not watering in the evening in particular. And things like that. You want to aerate, get a lot of penetration into the soil. You might want to look at soil wetters as well. There's a lot of things you can do before you resort to a fungicide. I had one reach out to me recently, actually. It was basically like I've used A, B, and C different fungicides, and in some situations you may need to use different fungicides, but wanted to know what to use next. And I was like, let's take a step back here. You've got something that's obviously an underlying issue that's been going on for a while for you to have used those number of fungicides and on a regular schedule.
Yeah.
You're not a golf course, you're not a whatever, you're not managing it at a certain level or a height cut. Let's look at what's happening here. So we got some photos and we found out essentially you just was watering the lawn wrong.
Yeah.
And if you change that up, you're going to see a lot of success and not have to use fungicides as frequently.
Yeah. Well, where possible, if you try and dry your lawn right down, remove any thatch. I know it's getting difficult when the weather starts to cool down, but before we get too cold, try and remove some thatch. And if you can aerate the soil and try and allow air, water, and nutrients to get to where they need to get, most of your disease problems will go away. Catcher clippings as well is a good one to take any affected leaf material out of the plant. But I've been in the Hawkesbury Valley a little bit recently looking at some turf farms out there, and there's a lot of, what they commonly call leaf spot or black spot out there getting around, and they just pretty much just leave it. They continue to mow. A lot of the times these diseases will take care of themselves. So your first port of call should always be try and dry it down, remove any thatch if possible, aerate the affected areas, and just give it a week or two first. If it's rapidly spreading and looking terrible, yes, you can look at a fungicide then. But at first, I'll try those other options first before you go spending some money and pouring A, B, and C.
Yeah, and if conditions are horrible for an extended period and no matter what you do, disease just persists, absolutely.
Yeah,
fungicides are going to be your friend and they're going to help you out and keep that disease under control.
Pre-Ems is next, pre-emergent herbicide. So now is obviously a time to jump on your pre-emergent application. If you are in Victoria, I'm hoping you might have done that already. I think sort of late Feb, early March is probably when you want to do it. If you're looking to get on top of wintergrass control, because wintergrass, as we've seen already, has already germinated in a lot of areas of the country, particularly down south. The reason you don't see it as often now is because you're still mowing your lawns. It doesn't mean the plant hasn't germinated. It's just you're mowing every week still, so you're getting rid of the wintergrass plant before you actually see it. But it's an important time to get your pre-emergent applications out now, pretty much for wintergrass control.
Yeah, basically as soon as you notice you're starting to mow the lawn less, then that's when the winter weeds or the soil temperature for those winter weeds are going to start germinating. So you get your pre-emergent down, whether it's liquid or granular like Oxifert. Get that down now. It's going to give you up to 12 weeks, 6 months in some situations, depending on what you're using of protection, and go a long way to improving your lawn's ability to choke out and stop those weeds from germinating throughout the winter.
So just with pre-emergence, if you wanted to look at a granular product like Oxifert or Oxifert Plus, 3 kilo, 20 kilo bag, you'll get up to 12 weeks protection from those. Where the granules are good is obviously you've got a fertilizer component of the product as well, but they're just so much easier to spread. You just whack them in a spreader or spread them out by hand and water them in. If you are someone who doesn't mind spraying their lawn, then Barricade's another pre-emergent that gives you up to 6 months. It doesn't have the fertilizer component to it, but it's a really effective pre-emergent herbicide as well. So either one of them will be fine depending on whether you like granular products or depending on when you like spraying. But now is a pretty important time to get these out, because if you use Oxifert, for example, and you get it out now and then you get it out again in 12 weeks time, let's say, the start of June, you pretty much will have a wintergrass free or a weed free lawn for the rest of the susceptible period, I guess you'd say, which is over winter.
Yeah, and that's when your lawn's at its absolute most vulnerable time of the entire year. So if you've had a really bad infestation of wintergrass over the last few years and you haven't used pre-emergence before, you may need to use post-emergent treatments as well. Some may still appear, but we see a lot of success when people use a combination of both pre and post treatments. And then moving forwards, you've got it under control year after year. And wintergrass or poannua is a horrible. If you let it go for 1 or 2 seasons, it's going to come back, and it's going to come back worse than ever. So it's a good way to get on top of it.
If you have missed the window, or you do see, let's say in 3-4 weeks' time, you do see some starting to emerge, the best thing to do is, whilst they're manageable, is to always hand remove. They come out really, really easy. If you want, you can give your lawn a slight water before you go out there just to soften that top layer of soil up, and you'll pull these things out, no worries at all. If they're manageable, I'd do that before spraying. The good thing about the pre-emergent window we've got now is it's also a good time to give yourself the reminder that your lawn probably needs a fertiliser too. I always think that heading into winter is probably the most important application of fertiliser you'll do for that year. What's a fertiliser now going to help the lawn with, Nath?
Well, I guess it's all about sending your lawn into winter as healthy as you possibly can. Autumn fertilising before those soil temps drop is probably the most important fertiliser application of the year. You're going to see good growth come back in spring and summer when the soil temps rise, and that's when you obviously fertilise your lawn in spring. But no other time of year will fertiliser provide you the benefits to the healthy of a lawn than in autumn. So extremely important to do it this time of year. If you are using an Oxifert type pre-emergent and you are looking at fertilising as well, you want to look at potentially doing those applications 2 or 3 weeks apart at minimum, just to make sure you're not overloading your lawn with an excessive amount of nitrogen all at once. And that's sort of more important depending on the nutrient requirements of your specific variety. If you've got a low input variety like a couch grass or something like that doesn't need a lot of nitrogen, have a look at how much nitrogen you're applying and make sure you don't apply them at the same time.
Yep. No, really, really good point. And the other thing a fertiliser does now is we talk about, pre-emerging for weed control. You fertilise now, you're just going to increase the density of your lawn that little bit, which is going to help to naturally choke out those weeds as well. So you're approaching the weed issue from 2 different angles, which is really, really important. This time of year as well, we are coming into the cooler months, so the lawn is starting to slow down. When a lawn slows down in growth, it also slows down in its ability to repair or self-repair. So limiting any stress on the lawn is really, really important. We've gotten a lot of people to say, hey, is it too late to remove thatch? Is it too late to core? Is it too late to top dress? I'll say definitely coring and top dressing can wait now until spring, unless you're north of Brisbane and you're still, keeping really, really warm weather. Scalping, look, we're in, a couple of hours south of Sydney here. We're still getting warm days. We're still getting a lot of growth at the moment. It may not be too bad to give your lawn a light scalp, but just keep in mind you've probably got another 2 weeks to do that before you start to get really, really risky with the weather turning too much. The issue you're going to get if you scalp too late is you're just not going to get the recovery. Your lawn's going to be open, more susceptible to weed invasion, and a bunch of other issues going on as well. just with scalping or mowing too low, mowing frequency is a common question we get coming into winter. And it's normally best for customers to keep their lawns or raise their cut height just a notch or two above normal, Nath.
Yeah, this is the time I'd be looking to raise my height a little bit. It's definitely slowed down. I've got a zoysia lawn. If you've got a zoysia lawn in particular, definitely don't look at scalping, dethatching, top dressing, and coring, any of those sort of things this time of year. It's well and truly slowed down in almost all states, I'd say, well, except for the very far north. So definitely don't do that. But mowing frequency, it's going down. But you still want to get the mower out, knock the top off it, keep it tidy, even if growth becomes quite limited. It will keep that sort of lateral growth still going to a certain extent and ensure that it stays nice and thick. And like Joe was saying about preventing weeds and vulnerability of the lawn, mowing frequency still play a part in that. But it'll be important just to make sure that you don't go too low with it. Just keep a nice consistent height.
Two things I want to say to that with mowing is, one is Nath makes an excellent point there. It's important to, whilst your mowing frequency slows down, it's still important to mow, I feel, over winter, even if it's once a month or once every 6 weeks. You don't want to keep mowing regularly. That's when you'll start to see wheel marks and that sort of thing in your lawn because your lawn's not growing. But I think a tidy up mow every so often is really, really important. You might be knocking some weeds down, but the main thing you'll be doing is taking any leaves, any debris that's come on your lawn and keeping the lawn nice and free so it can absorb every bit of sunlight it possibly can. I just call them a tidy up mow. I think it's important over the cooler months to maybe get the mower out every 4-6 weeks and just give it a quick cut on a high setting, of course. But the other thing you're doing is you're turning your mower over as well. You're starting it, which is really important. So you're not going, 4 months in between mows when you get the thing out in spring. And we talk about height of cut and how important it is to raise the cut height, like Nathan just said, which is so true. If you are one of the few people that has a really short manicured lawn that's looking fantastic, don't be afraid to keep it short and looking good, because shorter lawns, say you got Tiff Tuff or another hybrid couch grass or a short-cut couch grass, shorter cut grass with no thatch in it, looking beautiful, well manicured, actually will hold better colour than what it will if you leave it a little bit longer. So that's an important thing, only if you're that select group that keeps it nice and short, nice and tight. If you ever see a turf farm in winter, the greenest bit's always the grass that's recovering because it doesn't have any thatch to cool it down. It's not getting burnt. So if you have a sub 14 mil shortcut lawn, I'd encourage you to keep it that way. If you're everyone else with a buffalo, zoysia lawn, whatever, that's at a 20 to 50 mil cut height, raising your cut height is a really, really good thing to do. Now grubs, armyworm. Armyworm's a problem at the moment, particularly if you're, let's say, the New South Wales Vic border and north. They are making their way down into Victoria, but we don't see a lot of it down there. But Nath, we're seeing a lot of these around the Sydney and Brisbane area at the moment, aren't we?
We have probably not as bad as last year, but we've definitely seen quite a few examples of it. Just to clarify for those in Queensland, I think some people in Queensland called lawn grubs are also referred to as armyworm. In New South Wales, we tend to refer to lawn grubs as African black beetle larvae. So there's some naming differences between the states, but essentially we're looking at those common pests that we see: the African black beetle larvae, cockchafer, and armyworm issues, and they're generally between September and March is when they're at their most active. We're in March right now. If you do use a preventative insecticide like an acelepryn-based product like GrubGuard Ultimate, usually you'll be putting that out twice a year. So your second application is probably now. So if you haven't got that down yet, I'd be doing that now and making sure you got that year-round coverage.
That's probably why we're not seeing as much as we had done previously. A lot of people are getting on board with preventative insecticides now, which is great. Unfortunately, the reason they're doing this is they've been affected in the past. The worst thing about armyworm is they come, especially in New South Wales, they're here between sort of February and May, anytime in there. They're destroying your lawn and your lawn doesn't have the chance to recover because the weather's dropped so much. So applying preventive insecticides is so important. We've probably had, I've probably seen 5, 6, 7 of these in the last week of armyworm attacks, a couple in southwest Sydney, but mainly around the Sydney and northern New South Wales areas. The damage is so significant, so it's important to be very vigilant this time of year. If you see any patches or any unusual looking parts of your lawn, a couple of really easy ways you can tell. You've probably heard this 100 times, but a little bit of dishwashing liquid in a bucket of water, make a soapy water mix, pour it on the affected area of your lawn, and you'll see, any armyworms that are there or grubs that are there, they'll come to the surface really quickly. Another good trick is just to grab a beach towel, dunk a beach towel in water, lay it out on the lawn, leave it there overnight, come out the next morning, lift the towel up. If there's grubs there, they'll generally come to the surface there as well. If you do have grubs, applying what we call a knockdown insecticide as soon as you possibly can. I mean, if you see grubs, then go to the hardware store, go to your local turf supplier, go to the landscape yard, get some insecticide straight away and use it. Battle insecticide is one that we have, but the main thing you're looking for is the active ingredient, which needs to be something called bifenthrin. If you're using that, bifenthrin is great because it's nice and safe to use, but it's also really, really effective. Just make sure you always read the label and follow the instructions as you go there. But apply a knockdown and then use a preventative ongoing. Nathan mentioned the word before. It's a Celiprin technology. You can get a product called a Celiprin GR or GrubGuard Ultimate, which is the same product, just in different size packaging, but they are really, really effective.
And they do have a curative action, but the curative action is slow. So if you've got armyworm eating at your lawn and they can do devastating damage within a very short period, you need a knockdown, because if you rely just on a Celiprin, that a lot more damage is going to basically occur. It'll work, it'll go to work and start to prevent them and treat what's there to a certain extent over a week or so after the application. But yeah, by then potentially you've lost a lot more of your lawn than you needed to. So we definitely always recommend using a curative product if you've got an infestation. And
no one's safe. I had a customer the other day who said, they won't get my lawn because I look after it too well. That's often the opposite is true. There's a saying that they eat the best and leave the rest. So if you've got a really short, manicured, beautiful looking lawn, don't think you're safe. You're still very, very susceptible to grub attacks, so we'd recommend a preventative insecticide, no matter what your lawn type, where you are, or what it looks like. Now, PGRs isn't something we really associate with the autumn month plant growth regulators, but they would still be applicable to some people in certain climates, wouldn't they?
I think so. So PGRs, plant growth regulators, we're seeing the adoption of these types of products a lot more in the domestic market. And off the back of that, I guess you are seeing in some states, some people, depending on what they're trying to achieve with their lawn, they might be looking at applying PGRs almost year round. And I've heard of some people doing that. And in some cases, that can be doable. In a lot of areas, though, I certainly wouldn't be looking to use a PGR in the winter. Once lawn growth is slow, I'd be not using it. And if you've never used them before, absolutely do not use them outside. It will, March onwards. It's too late now. I'd be looking to use it maybe October at the earliest in most areas. So really important. They are a bit of a specialty product, but they're extremely good to use. It's just a matter of making sure, if you're not familiar with them, using them appropriately and until you're a lot more confident in doing so.
Yeah, it's been a funny season though. We're in, the second week of March now. Lawns in New South Wales are still growing pretty aggressively, particularly zoysia grass. Like zoysia grass has been weird lately. As long as we get that humidity, zoysia grass is going to grow. But the next few weeks will be a good watch because it's going to shut down a lot. But for example, I'm on a couple acres where I am, and I've got kikuyu grass, old dairy farm land, really nutrient-rich soil. I still think my kikuyu is growing roughly a centimetre, every day, every second day. So I've still been applying PGR to mine. Just at the label rates, even a tick under, just to control that rapid growth I'm getting. But for most residential situations, particularly if you've got buffalo, you probably don't want to look at growth regulators. However, if you have kikuyu, or if you still feel like you're mowing a lot, you can give it a light hit of PGR just to help it go to sleep going into winter. But yeah, most people, it wouldn't be a thing that you're really looking at doing for now. Just while we're talking products before we go into some other grass stuff, talking products, we do have a couple of new products on the market that people are going to be able to see on our lawn store, Nath. What kind of stuff are we looking at there?
I think the first one we've just recently released is a product called Estate Herbicide. It's a triple action broadleaf herbicide. The predominant reason why we've brought this one out is just to the reason that Bindi concentrate as a product has been discontinued or reclassified, so it's less available to the domestic market. So we needed an alternative that we could still provide that broadleaf solution to the majority of our customers with. It's a really good product, a really good combination of herbicides that will knock down a really broad range of broadleaf weeds. So Estate Herbicide, we've got that available through the lawn store as a concentrate product that you apply with a knapsack. Weeds throughout winter are obviously an issue, and you can treat them anytime with broadleaf herbicides. So it's important to keep on top of those during this period. And Estate's a great product to use.
And the great thing about Estate as well is it's 50 mil per 100 square meters or something like that. Anyway, that could be wrong, but anyway, you're getting a lot of coverage out of this product, which is great. It's going to last the average lawn user, the average size lawn, 2, 3, sometimes even 4 applications. So you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck. And it's safe on all lawn varieties as well. I think it's all warm season varieties anyway. Again, read the label,
yeah,
please.
buffalo grasses in particular. A lot of broadleaf herbicides aren't safe on buffalo, but estate is. Yeah, so the key thing with it is to use it now if you do have a broadleaf weed infestation, to get on top of it before we cool off too much leading into the winter months for sure.
So that's estate broadleaf herbicide. Again, Bindai and other products with similar active ingredients being bromoxynil MCPA or certain levels of that have been reclassified, so they're not as readily available. You won't see them on the shelves of shops too much anymore. So estate herbicide is a great replacement if you're looking to control weeds. We also have all-purpose weed control in a hose-on if mixing products into a sprayer isn't your thing. Two more new ones that you're going to see that we just want to touch on. High Cure is a new product from Syngenta that's a biostimulant. It's something that can really be mixed well with our liquid fertilizers, iron, those sort of products, just to give your plant a little bit of a lift, particularly as we're coming what I call the shoulder seasons, either side of winter, particularly as your lawn's starting to slow down, to really get the most out of it. Now, I know this word isn't very commonly liked now, particularly in the sporting world, but it's a peptide, basically for your grass. It's based on amino acids and peptides for use in turf and ornamentals. Don't worry, ASADA aren't going to come knocking on your door or anything like that. You'll be fine. But HiQ supports natural processes in the plant and enhances plant performance in general, and especially under abiotic stress conditions. So it's something we actually use a lot here in our research program, particularly in our hothouse. Hothouse creates a lot of stresses on plants because they're growing so much. You're getting a lot of reflective heat. There's a lot of humidity around. We've added HiQ to our maintenance program there, and we've seen a lot less damage on these plants. Makes a much healthier leaf, and it improves the heat stress of plants, which is still pretty applicable at the moment in a lot of areas. We're still getting really warm days. So if you are someone who likes spraying liquid products and you have a regular regime, I'd look at adding a biostimulant like HiQ. Again, the great thing about a lot of these products is you can mix them in together and you won't have any issue. I know a lot of people like to mix liquid fertilizers and iron when they apply PGR, for example, but feel free to add HiQ to your mix of liquid fertilizers if that's the way you want to go.
One thing we were going to talk about, Joe, as well, is you just touched on it with mixing of products. We get a lot of questions about, can I mix this with that? If I apply this, when can I apply this? Mm-hmm. First thing to answer that question is to read the application instructions. What you're trying to achieve, yes, potentially that you may be able to mix them together, you may be able to apply them concurrently, but you need to ensure that you are following the label instructions. So if in doing so by mixing or applying next back to back, you are unable to fulfill the application instructions, obviously do not do it. A lot of manufacturers now will tell you specifically, okay, you can use this product with our other product, and they're great to use. But if you're ever unsure, reach out to the product manufacturer, reach out to us here at Lawn Solutions Australia, and we'll be happy to let you know as to what the best combination is to do and how to go about it. There's so many variables when it comes to the different products available. So I'd hate to blanket sheet with advice that's potentially not going to be accurate for all things. But if in doubt, reach out to the experts. Yeah,
there's a label there for a reason. A lot of money gets invested into that label, and read it like I do every single time, all the time, without fail. The other product that we want to talk about is a little bit of a fun one. We already mentioned PGRs, which is plant growth regulator. But again, Syngenta have released a product that essentially does the same thing, but on hedges, which is really, really cool. It's called Trim It. We've been using it a lot here over the last few years. We have a lot of Fertinia hedges here, and if anyone has Fertinia hedges, they know that they grow incredibly quickly, and they can be a little bit of a maintenance nightmare. Same thing with Moreas, other sort of hedges like that. They look great, they serve a really good purpose, but if you're hedging every couple of months, they can be a really, really painful job. I know around here, no one really wants to put their hand up when it comes time to do the hedging because it's an absolute nightmare, but Trim It can fix that. So basically what Primo Max or PGRs do for turf grass, Trim It does for hedges. So it creates a denser hedge, but it slows the growth down quite considerably to the point where, you've only got to apply this stuff once a year. You may only have to hedge once a year. It can reduce growth by up to 70%, which is really, really significant. But how it works, and this is often a common misconception, is it's applied to the base of the hedge plant, not to the actual leaf. So you're looking to get a watering can, mix it up like that, and pour it to the base of the plant. I think it's how much product it is on the label into 1 litre of water gets applied to the base of each plant in that hedge. But you got to be careful. You can't have a hedge. I think it's over 2 meters and under 500 mil. I think it is. Just confirm that when you read the label. But if your hedge is outside of those sizes, so if it's really, really big or if it's quite a young hedge, you can't apply it. But it's a really cool product. It works really well. Again, not only does it make your hedge slow down in growth, so it's less maintenance, but it improves the look and performance of that hedge plant as well. That's now available on our lawn store, which is cool.
It's on the lawn store. We wouldn't normally do a gardening specific product, but I think
we don't like plants.
We don't like other. We specialize in lawns, but lawns and plants, lawns and hedges, they go hand in hand. We see a lot of lawn enthusiasts with some really nice, neatly trimmed hedges. I think it's something that if you lean into having a manicured lawn, you tend to have a manicured hedge as well, and trim it's a great way to make sure you got the best of both worlds and you got both looking great. Yeah,
plants are good. We'll go after them. Now, just away from products now, I think we'll talk about a certain turf grass variety that a few of you that subscribe to our channels or follow general turf media would have seen, or if you listen to the podcast, you would have heard us talk about it a little bit before too, is we are bringing a new softleaf buffalo to grass to market called Stampede Hybrid Buffalo, which we're really, really excited about. It's a wonderful new grass. It's got excellent colour. It's got really good growth habits, which we're seeing now, good disease resistance, and we're pretty excited to see. Again, it go through another winter because the last few winters it's gone through. It's held good colour. It's been more active than other buffalo grasses. So you've seen some stuff across our social channels and our marketing platforms about Stampede being released. We're looking at a late sort of 25 or more into 26 release of this grass around Australia, but please keep an eye out for Stampede Hybrid Buffalo. We've got a little bit of information out there at the moment, but more will come over the next few weeks and months. So that's going to be pretty cool. I guess rounding out today, we will just finish with another little look at a product called ColourGuard Plus, which we spoke about before. But as we're heading into winter, Nath, I think it's a pretty important thing for people to consider for a number of reasons.
Yeah, I think people tend to look at pigments when their lawn's already completely brown, so we tend to talk about it in winter. But I think a really good time to talk about and look at applying a pigment like ColourGuard Plus to your lawn is in autumn once it starts to slow down. The way that well-designed products, pigments specifically like ColourGuard Plus work is they're not a paint, they're not a dye that just coats the outside of the leaf to make it look pretty from the outside. It gets absorbed into the leaf. But for that to happen, the grass itself still needs to be somewhat active. It still needs to be photosynthesizing to an extent and still able to absorb the product so that it looks more natural and it goes into the plant. But what that means is the best time to apply it is usually around mid to late autumn, depending on exactly where you are. If you're in Victoria at the moment, you might want to start looking at doing a pigment now. You can't really apply them too early. It's just a matter of getting the most out of the application. So I'd be urging people to start to look at it now, particularly if you don't like a brown lawn in winter. Nothing wrong with a brown lawn in winter, but from an aesthetics point of view, if you do want your lawn to be greener and you have a warm season variety and your climate is particularly harsh where your lawn goes into a significant level of dormancy, the ColourGuard and pigments are an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah. The analogy I use for what you just said then is if you got a red wall and you want to paint it white, if you do one coat of white paint, the wall's painted, sure, but you're still going to see that red bit coming through. That's the look you get when you apply pigments like ColourGuard Plus too late in the season once your lawn's already dormant and already brown. Sure, it's been painted, but it looks painted. It looks colorized. It doesn't look natural. If you start doing that now, as your lawn slowly goes into its dormancy period, you're going to get a much better, much more consistent result by drip feeding ColourGuard Plus to your lawn rather than waiting for it to be, straw and then wondering why it doesn't get the most out of it. Don't forget, when your grass is in full dormancy, it's really dry, it's really stressed, there's no moisture in the plant, there's nothing for the pigment to stick to. So if you get onto it while there's still some hydration in the leaf, you're going to get a much, much better result, which is really important. And works great on all lawn varieties, but again, it's more about the timing than anything else. If you've got a softleaf buffalo lawn, or if you've got a lawn that looks fantastic and vibrant right now, like Zoysia australis, for example, looks magnificent at the moment, its colour change is pretty drastic. It doesn't have bad winter colour compared to other grasses, but it happens really quickly. If you have a Zoysia australis lawn, I'm sure you're enjoying the fruits of it right now, but it's probably good to start to consider some ColourGuard Plus applications now just to nullify that colour loss that you're going to experience over the next few months. I think that's about it, Nath. A few topics covered.
I think that's it. If you have any questions or if we haven't covered anything in recent podcasts that you would like some more information on, please reach out. We're always looking for new information to cover to make sure our episodes are as relevant and helpful as they possibly can be. So, definitely reach out to us here at Lawn Solutions Australia, either through our Facebook or whatever avenue you use most commonly. We're happy to help.
Yep. And as always, thanks for listening and thanks for your support on the podcast. There's a lot of people tuning in. We're getting a lot of great feedback for our episodes, and we're just happy to keep pumping lawn content out for everyone, whether that's informative, or we think they're informative, but episodes like this and also some special guests we get on. We're glad you're all enjoying it. But as always, any questions, any feedback, please reach out to us. And Nath, thanks again for your expertise and your time.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, everyone.